actually, I think the country is broken beyond repair. And, I observe that in my ordinary life, and certainly I observe that in relation to the total destruction of the criminal justice system, which is, as close to a national emergency as we can get. Cathy, can I just make sure that your listeners understand I have no formal role as a government advisor. I have in the past advised the government on things to do with extremism, but I don't have any formal role. I have resigned as a member of the Conservative Party, but
Right.
just, I don't want to give the impression that I've got status above my station.
No problems at all. I think we understand that. That's great to have it clarified, though. Just explain then why you've resigned. We've seen a resignation letter, which was been published by the Telegraph, but just set out for our listeners what it is that made you quit the party.
Well, I suppose you could say that I've been circling the drain for some time. I mean, I've resigned from the Conservative Party, but I'm philosophically still a Conservative. I still believe in conservative ideals. And you can probably tell from my accent, I'm from Northern Ireland, and people from my community, and I include myself in this, have a particular visceral affinity to remembrance, the act of remembrance, which kind of runs through us culturally. So for me, everybody's got different tolerances, but for me, the act of colossal disrespect, of unforgivable disrespect by the Prime Minister was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. I had considered resigning before because of the government's Legacy and Reconciliation Act in Northern Ireland, which I believe, shunted people who'd suffered crimes by terrorists against them and were bereaved into a kind of no man's land of no criminal action being possible to be taken on perpetrators. And I didn't then. What I did was try to work behind the scenes to bolster what was very bad legislation and which remains very bad legislation. So I've kind of been, on the edge, as it were. But this act of disrespect by the Prime Minister, I don't know, something just flipped in me, and I thought I cannot be attached to a party that is, so cynical as to, have the Prime Minister returning from the D-Day commemoration. And it's been said before, where there are men there who will not live to see another anniversary. And so it's an opportunity to say thank you to them and to represent the country. And to scuttle back to London to do a pre-recorded interview to defend an indefensible position on taxation as an attack line. Just, I could not, in all conscience, continue to be a member of a party that is either so incompetent or so cynical, or both.
And you the tax row played into this. Then you just said there, that it's an indefensible position. The accusations that Labour was going to raise taxes by £2,000.
Well, yes, and part of my understanding of being a Conservative is that we act in the interests of the country, not the party, and we have integrity. And this is just cynical electioneering, and it was obviously a false declaration to make, and that's kind of added insult to injury that he would return for that particular reason. I must say the subsequent excuse that this was a kind of a scheduling accident doesn't make me think that my decision is any more wrong. If anything, it reinforces the fact this is indefensible. And for me, it was just the final straw.
And you've also had some pretty choice words about the leadership as a whole. Mendacious, incompetent and disreputable clowns. I mean, tell us what you really think.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've described myself for years in my bio on Twitter, X, as an unbiddable Tory. And I suppose I do say what I think. But I've got a very strong inclination, particularly in the world that I'm familiar with, the world of national security and criminal justice system and policing and so on, that you act in the interests of the country first. And I just, I find it intolerable that the interests of the country were junked in favour of narrow party sectional interest and advantage at an act of solemn remembrance for people who gave their lives, defending the freedoms that we now have. I don't know, there's just something in that where this pushed my buttons, if you like, and I thought I can't be part of this anymore. But, I've been accused, I think, there's been a colossal reaction to this, out of all proportion to my importance, I have to say. But some people have said this is opportunistic. And I'd just like to know where the opportunity is, because, I'm not deserting the sinking ship. I'm probably going down with it. Not to mix my sort of metaphors, but I'll probably be ambling about in the smoking ruins on the 7th or 8th of July. And I won't have moved because my philosophical convictions remain the same. I just simply cannot be supportive of a party that has fallen so far, in my estimation, in terms of the duty it owes to the country.
David Davis, amongst other Conservatives, David Davis on this programme, talking about how Labour are politicising this, it's hypocrisy. Gordon Brown almost didn't go to the D-Day commemorations back in the day. Is there anything to that, do you think?
Well, we're in a general election cycle, so all political parties are going to, exploit any perceived mistakes that their opponents make.
Yeah, but the idea is this should be beyond that. It should be out of politics entirely.
No, I think, I've been interested to hear the Prime Minister say this, that he wants to depoliticise it. Well, in fact, what he was saying was a political statement, which was defending electioneering. So I don't buy that, frankly. This has been a big mistake. I know he's been big enough to apologise for it. But for me, personally, as I say, everybody has their tolerances. People could quite fairly say to me, well, why did you put up with Johnson's behaviour or the lunacy of the Truss, administration and all the rest of it? And I suppose, I am a Conservative because I'm optimistic, and I kept expecting better. And I thought, Sunak, when he came in, would be an opportunity to restore confidence. But actually, I think the country is broken beyond repair. And, I observe that in my ordinary life, and certainly I observe that in relation to the total destruction of the criminal justice system, which is, as close to a national emergency as we can get. And, I don't think there is the competence or the energy or the commitment or the understanding of what's happening in the country to ordinary people for the Conservatives to put up an offer that's attractive anymore. When we have middle-class people having, their child benefit restored, or this crazy idea off the back of a fag packet about national service, it just feels like the desperate death throes of a political party. And I don't know what's going to be left.
Well,
if as expected, there's a crushing electoral defeat, but I'll probably still be there. So, that's how I can sort of square this with my own conscience, I suppose.
And just briefly and finally, have you had any communication with Michael Gove over your thoughts on this?
No, and I wouldn't expect to. I mean, I have huge respect for Michael Gove, and he knows this. But that's why I want to say at the start, I'm not very close to any of these people, and I'm acting entirely on my own kind of basis. And so, no, I'm not expecting anybody. I wasn't expecting this amount of interest in somebody who's relatively unknown resigning anyway. So, I know Michael Gove is leaving politics. I think that's a loss for politics because he's one of the most able and intellectual exponents of conservatism, of the sort of conservatism that I espouse. And actually, that's one of the points that I don't see anybody coming in behind people, the big beasts that are leaving the field, who've got the competence or the authority to be able to, continue a government, or certainly a government that needs to, embark in national renewal, because that's what we need at the moment.
Right.
And I'm certainly not endorsing Keir Starmer, who I've huge doubts about.
Right.
So I'll probably just stay in my lane and vote for whoever I think puts country before party and represents the national interest